So when we talk about feedback, to tee this up, I'd like to ask that you reflect on what feedback means to you. What does it look like in your organization? What does it look like in your work group? So I'm going to ask you, just by a show of raised hands, how many of you think that you give enough feedback? How many of you think you give enough feedback to other people? Raise your hand. Look around. No one is raising their hands. That's a pretty typical response. Now, how many of you think you get enough feedback from other people? Raise your hands. No one's raising their hands. So we know that we don't give it enough. We also are hungry for it. We want more of it because we want to know if there are things that we are doing that are helpful. And we also want to know things that we might be doing that are not so helpful, and yet we're not getting that. Why is that? So oftentimes we avoid feedback because it has a negative connotation. Our past experiences typically show that when we have tried to give feedback, people become defensive. And with that defensiveness, usually emotions accompany that. And let's face it, we don't like emotions. We don't want to have to deal with someone else's emotions because it's weird and it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. So what we want to do is give you a model of feedback that you can try out to help create some dialogue and conversation that can reduce that emotion, that can reduce the negative emotions, it can reduce some of the defensiveness, and actually create some good developmental conversation. When we talk about effective feedback and what that means at CCL, we have a simple definition. It's information that you receive, which is in response to actions or behaviors that you have seen, that you have taken, or that you have seen from other people. Okay? And so, before I teach you this model and before we do a little bit of practice, I want to share with you some important points to consider as part of this. So this particular model is not a one-stop solution for all of your feedback needs. There are times where this model may not work. So there are some times where we need to get compliance, maybe safety issues, legal issues, regulatory. There may be beyond a developmental conversation, and it may be a very serious performance issue. In those cases, this particular model likely will not work. There are times where we need to be authoritative, we need to be directive, and sometimes people just want us to tell them what to do in some situations. And so when we talk about effective feedback, this particular model has a developmental behavioral approach. So it assumes that the feedback we're providing is based on behaviors that can be changed, behaviors that can be learned.